This is Mike Orchard here at College Athlete Advantage. We have on today Gregg Wallis, recruiting coordinator at Grand Canyon, and we are a friend, so it's be a little bit different today too as far as the conversation. Gregg, why don't you go ahead and give people your background if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, you kind of said I'm the recruiting coordinator at Grand Canyon University. This season was my 7th season at Grand Canyon. I started here in July of 2013, and the shortened season this year was my 7th, and so hope to be here for a long time too.
Good. A lot of you guys know that with the season shut down, these coaches have a ton of time on their hands, so we figured we'd have Gregg on here and kind of give some information into the recruiting world from a Division I coach's perspective. So I'm going to ask a few questions here, let Gregg do his thing, and kind of talk about the inside world of Division I recruiting. My first question will be this. Given the current events here, how prevalent is video when it comes to recruiting? Obviously, video's been around for a while, but how prevalent is video during the shutdown time and moving forward after we get back?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, during the shutdown time, we can't go out on the road till May 31st. We can't have anybody on campus till May 31st. So video is more important than ever because we can't see anyone in person. Video, just in general, through the years, I know since I started here in 2013, it's just become so important to just give you a brief glimpse into the skill set of a possible recruit. Whether it's, you get it in an email. I think almost every email that I get from a recruit now has some link to a video of some sort, or whether it's posted on Twitter or a social media platform. It's a huge asset for the players to have video, and it's a huge asset for us to just get that snapshot of skill set.
We had a debate last night with our advisors last night. Would you rather see a skills video or a game video? If you had your choice between one or the other, which one would you rather choose?
One or the other, that's a tough one. I'd like a mix of a little bit of both. I think you can gain something off seeing some batting practice swings, some bullpen swings. I'm talking from an offensive perspective, batting practice, and then some mix of some live game at bats. From a pitching perspective, I think game is fine. I'd like to see a game view better than a bullpen because you get to see them compete a little bit more. Mix of both is great. Live game at bats are always good if they're chopped up in a way where you can see a lot in a short period of time.
Good. You mentioned social media before. When you like recruit or guys on your radar, do coaches follow guys? And if they follow them, is it are you guys looking those guys? Is it your job to look at guys? Or is it the administration? Who's really following players on social media in 2020?
Yeah, I think I know when I'm recruiting a kid, or especially if I'm actively recruiting them, younger kids that we can't communicate with, the sophomores, the freshmen, the kids that you can't talk to yet, I'll definitely follow them on social media because you see a lot. Their schedules are posted, their highlight videos are posted, so you can really kind of follow their career pretty intimately. So yeah, that's the first thing I'll do is when I either maybe a third party or their high school posts something, their junior college, if I like something I see, I'll definitely try to follow the kid on social media and get as much information as I can, whether it's on the field or off the field, about a possible recruit.
Are there any turnoffs when you're following these players, or anything that kind of like you got like, oh my gosh, they posted that or they said that? You don't have to name any specific examples, but
yeah,
you kind of steer these guys away from?
Yeah, just in general, you obviously want to follow someone that's shows some signs of respect or is respectful. A disrespectful kid that on social media is going to be a red flag or a turnoff. Maybe someone who's into trash talking a lot. If they're doing that on social media, you can only imagine what they'd be like with the emotions of a game and all that. So yeah, I just say you want someone who obviously is pretty respectful with their posts and with how they conduct themselves on social media.
Good. So kind of go with today's recruiting stuff, social media, and also what's different now is the metric space versus performance space. We were both at the convention in Nashville in January, and you see a lot of gadgets, a lot of metric stuff too. As you're evaluating players, are you the guy who leans more towards the numbers, or what is that metric race as far as throwing velo, exit velo, spin rate, or are you a guy more who's like, man, this guy's performed well, he's been all state, he's been all conference? Which one do you lean more towards?
I think, obviously the metrics are becoming more and more prevalent in the game today, and it's something that's being added to the emails you get, the Twitter videos and all that. I still like performance, but the metrics are important when evaluating. I would kind of see it like if I'm going off a summer season, I'm looking more for skill set, maybe raw ability, and then in a high school season, looking more towards performance. When you have obviously there's league play, you're competing for state championships. I think you can get a better idea of performance, statistics during a high school season, and maybe some raw metrics during a summer or a showcase setting. So I think you got to integrate both of them.
Well, you mentioned summer, and we got a lot of 2021s, 2022s. They're kind of obviously disappointed with their season, but also kind of not freaking out, but really nervous about summer baseball not happening. Let's assume for everybody's sake it happens, everybody's playing and back to all summer schedules. Do you guys have, and you have to give your dirty details on GCU, but do you guys have something where you guys see a guy play live so many times? Is there a certain minimum requirements you need to see a guy play? Do certain guys in your staff have to see a guy play? Would you ever offer a guy for a video? What's the range on which you would need to see a guy play to make a decision?
Yeah, there's no set number. Obviously, if we have time to see them, we'd like to see them as much as possible. Sometimes it just depends on the recruit's time frame and when they're looking to make a decision. You want to have as much information as possible. You want to be able to see them play in several different settings, in the club scene, in the summer scene, in the spring season, obviously, hopefully in a playoff setting, in some games where there's some high stakes going. So in an ideal world, I'd like to see them play as much as possible. I'd always like to, as a recruiting coordinator, if there's a position guy that I really like, I always like when Coach Stankiewicz gets his eyes on him as well, or a pitcher when Coach Hawksworth gets his eyes on them. So I always consider my job almost as like an area scout, where I'm trying to identify talent and hoping that, when Coach goes and sees them or Hawk goes and sees them, that they cross-check that and like the ability, or vice versa. If Hawk sees someone and says, hey, well, you got to go see this guy, we cross-check. And when we all kind of like a guy, it's a no-brainer. And then if there's split, camps, then obviously that's discussion, and maybe we need to see them play more. So for me, it's as much as possible. The time frame of the recruit speeds that up or slows that down sometimes.
What I like you said, which is interesting too, is the playoff setting or intense game setting. So that's why you're kind of regular at the state tournament here in Arizona, is because you want to see obviously good teams, good players compete in an intense environment. So that kind of holds more weight than obviously a tournament where it doesn't really matter per se in your mind, correct?
I mean, to me, yeah, there's nothing like, to me, competing for championships, for a state championship, over a long season, for a junior college championship, for a league title and all that. So, yeah, I think traditionally here, the Arizona State playoffs have been something that we've loved to cover, because you're seeing guys, really for the highest stakes when you're playing for a state championship with your team. And you really get to see kind of some makeup of players who may be skilled, but how do they perform in those environments? If we can see that and evaluate that, obviously we would love to do that. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's a kid that wants to make a decision quickly, and all you have is a summer session to go off of, or a showcase, and you have to make the decision with your staff and obviously with the approval of your head coach. Well, we like this kid so much that all we were able to see was a showcase in batting practice or a video. And maybe other schools have seen him more and are further down the road. So that's where your time frame gets pushed more, is if you have to make a quick decision on a recruit. But yeah, I'd love to see every kid compete in a playoff setting.
So obviously, as a high school setting, do you guys have a preference towards high school or junior college players? I mean, at GCU, first of all, I guess at GCU for what your program is there. Second thing is, you've obviously coached some different places. So what's your take on high school versus JC versus maybe possible GCU, if that's different?
I think it's a lot is dependent on what your current roster or future roster looks like. So I love junior college players and high school players. We obviously our program sprinkled in with a lot of each of them. I think if you look at our last 2 recruiting classes, they're very different. In 2019 season, I think that's right. Yeah, 2019, we started 7 offensively. We started 7 either seniors or draft eligible juniors, or actually 8. We started 8 seniors or draft eligible juniors. At the end of the year, we lost 7 of those starters, so we were going to be returning 2. So that year, we really in our 2019 recruiting class, we really tried to target some impact JC guys with some experience that could come in and make an immediate impact. On the flip side of that, in our current class, we don't have a JC player yet, and that's not because we don't value JCs. We do. Our JC at times this year we were starting 4 to 5 junior college transfers, but next year, if you look at our lineup with those guys coming back, they're older. So our 2020 recruiting class is pretty young. We got a lot of young, talented high school kids. So it varies by year and by where your roster's at and where your needs are at.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit too. And again, if this is too long, we'll chop it up into 2 segments here. But I do want to get some other questions here.
I got I got plenty of time. It's either this or walk the dog or change diapers. So,
Well, we talked last night, too, about the quarantine haircut. So I think all of us guys are getting really nervous about that first quarantine haircut from our wives. So
I'm going to let it go. I'm just letting it go till the end. Beard, as you see, I never have a beard, but.
Well, this is at least kept up anyway. It's not too messy just yet.
I think this is just a choppy video makes me look better. So. Zoom makes the beard look good.
A lot of our players have is a lot of these guys have what they call a summer circuit where they're going off to different events, and it's really cool because some events are really well done, some aren't as well done, and a lot of times we get asked, from our players is, how important are rankings? For a perfect game ranking, a PBR ranking, a national ranking, a state ranking, and again, I think a lot of outfits do a really good job of certain things, but as we're giving advice to players, we get asked that question, do coaches look at their databases? Do they look at the rankings? How important are those things versus a college kid getting recruited to a college or a school like yours?
Yeah, they're definitely a factor. I mean, you're going to look at the PBR, the PG, any of the Arizona high school rankings, and not to say that you're going to agree with them 100% or that you're strictly going to recruit off of the rankings, but it is something where if you play well in those venues and are ranked high by those publications, obviously we're going to take notice. If I'm looking at a PBR or a PG list and there's a kid in the top 10 that I've never heard of, I'm definitely going to do my homework and find out who he is and why I haven't heard of him, and then dig deeper into it and see if their ranking lines up with our with how we evaluate. And if it does, usually you can find a lot of really good players. Those services, PBR, PG, some of the local ones in Arizona that put out the rankings, Ron Benham, guys like that, they're usually pretty accurate with the names. So you might have to look through, say, 50 of the top 50, and maybe you don't agree with who's 1, who's 6, who's 25, who's 50, but usually they capture the top talent in the state for sure. And then it's our job to kind of comb through that and say, well, they got this guy ranked 46, and I think he's 5. So, and kind of make our own rankings really based off all that information.
How has Grand Canyon recruiting changed from, when you guys transitioned from Division II, Division I to where you guys are in Division I to where you guys are at now? How has it changed for the players you've gone after, to your success getting players, to how your viewpoint is of the state of Arizona? How have you guys changed in the last 4 or 5 years versus what it was before?
That's a great question. I think just more visibility. Really, we've been seasoned Division I now. When we started, it was, we were going through a transition. We didn't have a stadium. You see my sweet stadium background on Zoom.
That is a pretty fancy background.
Thank you. I take pride in my Zoom backgrounds. We didn't have a stadium, which wasn't the biggest deal because at the time when I came here, it was, Nathan Choate was here. Obviously, Coach Stankwitz has been here the whole time, and they were doing an incredible job finding guys who were really, really high-level players that before the stadium, and they could have played, on any Division I teams or a ton of Division I teams, and they were Division II. So they were doing a great job already at kind of identifying guys who maybe weren't the high-profile guy, but were really, really good players. And by the time they were sophomores and juniors, were impact guys and could have played in the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or the SEC. And then now there's just some more validity towards our Division I. We've had some track record. We've had 7 seasons now. We can make the postseason. We've had, because of those early great classes that, were brought in, we've had some success in the draft. So all that leads to kind of being able to recruit the top players, whether it's in Arizona or California or really from anywhere. I think we have more visibility outside of the state now as well, just because of how long now we've been in Division I, or I shouldn't say how long, we're still new to it, but we have been, we're not brand new like we were 7 years ago. So there's some kids from out of state taking notice too. And obviously our goal is always going to be to recruit the best player in state, but it's nice that when you call a kid from California or the Midwest, they've heard of us now. They've maybe watched one of our games or come through Phoenix in the summertime and been to our facility. So it just has become a little bit easier as time goes on in the Division I era.
Well, it must be nice when guys come to campus, especially those guys who are not familiar with GCU, that come to campus and they see your field, your stands, your facilities. It's got to be pretty cool for those guys to kind of see that and be surprised by what GCU has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a credit to what GCU administration has done here. They got us this beautiful facility. We have a great half field. We have great batting cages. Our campus is top notch. So these kids that come in from out of state for the PG tournament or, all these tournaments, that the fall classics that are here in Phoenix, they visit all the Arizona schools and we're one of them that they're going to do their tour to. And I think it's the visibility to out-of-state kids is higher than it's obviously been as we keep going here.
One last question here. We'll kind of finish up with this. As you know, we work with a lot of athletes in high school and some junior college players as well. When do you think a family should start having a strategy or process to those things? We give advice and we help families, but you're from the other side and you're kind of watching these families, watching the events, watching the camps. You're really in tune with a lot of things. When do you think the family should start having a strategy in the recruiting process?
I don't think they can start the process too early. I just think it probably will change as time goes. Obviously, when the younger you are, the strategy should just be really developing into the best player that you can be and not necessarily being too concerned with who's recruiting you early on. That stuff will all fall into place if you're, obviously we feel there's a place for everybody, whether it's, junior college and NAIA, which are very good competitive options, a D2, a D3, a D1. I think that if you get caught up in the recruiting side of it too early of who's recruiting you, it could become a daunting thing. Whereas if you kind of do your education early on maybe refining your focus of what you're looking for in a program, researching those programs. We might not be ready to recruit a sophomore, or you might not be getting recruited as a sophomore, but that doesn't mean you can't, go to games. If you're an Arizona kid, go to a GCU game, go to an ASU game, go to a game at Ottawa, go to a game at South Mountain Community College and kind of get a feel for, how these places are run. We talk about a showcase. Our programs are put on showcase really, most years every weekend. So I think the recruiting process early should be more kids finding out about programs. Maybe they're not being actively recruited, but they're becoming fans of college baseball. They're understanding that, hey, there's some really, really good options at junior college, and I want to go check out Scottsdale Community College on a Tuesday afternoon, and then I want to go to a GCU game. And then as it gets going, and then seeing where they're at in terms of who else is on the field and what do they need to get better at to maybe get to the level that they want to get to, putting a plan in place for development where, all right, I'm a sophomore right now. I just went and watched this team play, and I don't know if I'm as good as those guys. So how can I get as good as them to get into the recruiting conversation? And then as you get older and stronger and more physical, more, I guess, recruiting options open up because it's probably just your time. I think there's just a time frame for kids. And if you try to rush it or expedite it and you're not ready, it could be frustrating. If you let the process happen naturally, organically, and all the time focusing on why are you doing this, right? If you're playing, and I've heard, you talk to coaches on the road and all this, if you're playing solely to get recruited, then you're probably not in it for the right reasons, right? You don't love the game. If you're playing because you love baseball, you want to go to college, you want to get an education and continue to play, then you'll continue to develop and get better, and options will open up that line up with your development and where you are as a player.
Good. That's a pretty polished answer from you, Mr. Wallis.
I blacked out for a second. Too much coffee. I'm high energy anyways, and I knew I had this, so it was a couple extra cups of coffee this morning for sure.
Well, you stuck to the time constraints. We really appreciate that here. So
yeah,
we'll go take care of the wife and new baby there as well. Again, thank you for your time today, and hopefully next time we talk to you, you'll be out on the road recruiting somewhere.
Hopefully, yeah. Thanks a lot. This was fun, and I enjoyed it. Thanks, Orch.
All right, take care.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye.